Hi, we're going to be talking about jQuery in the enterprise, building business applications with Wakanda. My name's Greg McCarville. I'm the Director of Business Development for Wakanda. I recently joined the team and was first in the development community for about 8 months working with the Wakanda product and developing applications. You can see my contact information there on Twitter at McCarville, github.com/McCarville. And if you want to email me directly, I'd love to get your feedback. It's greg@4d.com. I'm based in London, Ontario. So who's behind the Wakanda project? It's a company called 4D Inc. They're based out of San Jose, California and Paris, France. They have over 25 years in the database business, a lot of experience there, and they've applied a lot of the rules and experience they've had and successes they've had in Wakanda, and development started on that product in around 2008. Got some goals for this presentation. We're going to be going very quickly because it's a half hour long. But I want to identify natural use cases for Wakanda, for the full stack in particular. We're going to demo Wakanda, and the full intention there is to create some curiosity. I want to spark some interest, get you to download the product, give it a try, and then provide feedback to us what you'd like to see, how you'd like to see things work. We've got a great base there, but definitely looking for feedback. I'm going to demonstrate building an application. We're really focusing on two different styles of development with Wakanda. We've got a free studio that I'm going to be demonstrating. It's a lot of graphical user interface, drag and drop, wizards, and these types of things. And we have another stream of development that we'll cover another day, which is if you favor console, text editors, and these types of things, we have some more advanced features for that type of activity. I'm also going to demonstrate Wakanda server and show you some of the syntax to access data from our NoSQL data store. So what is Wakanda? It's an open source modular stack. We have a data source, an HTTP server, a data transport layer, and a client framework. It uses JavaScript everywhere, so it's server-side JavaScript, and then on the front end it's web standards, so HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We have a free studio available. Of course, you're welcome to bring your own tools if you prefer Sublime Text, TextMate, Eclipse, you name it. We're dealing with standard files here, so you can use what you like. And the best thing about Wakanda is it's getting better every day. We're very active in development, implementing new features constantly, and we're on a 6-month release cycle. So we've got nightly builds that we're producing, and we want to keep this as transparent as possible and really embrace that open source environment. So you can see the diagram of the stack here. Really it's based around Wakanda server. We have a NoSQL relational data store that in between the server and the data store we've created a virtualization layer which allows us some unique flexibility. Of course our data store is very performant and highly recommended. However, if you have a legacy system, perhaps in MySQL or another database, we are actually developing connectors through this virtualization layer that you can actually work with tables from a relational database as if they're a Wakanda data store class. So it's kind of a new twist on things, really handy and great to work with. Between the server and the framework, the client framework, we have a data provider API, and this takes care of serializing data and data transport between the server and the framework. So where do you get it? Wakanda.org is the project website. You'll find everything there. But for this particular example, I'm going to be using a sample solution that makes it really easy. It generates data for you so you can start experimenting really quickly. And that's at wakanda.4d.com/jQueryTO.html. So you can download both the product and the project from there. So what are the natural use cases? I feel these are some of the best places for the full stack. Like I said, it is a modular stack, so you can utilize just the server portion, for instance, and have any front end taking and retrieving and putting data. But for the full stack, I think business and data intensive web applications are a real natural for it. Internal applications in an IT department or back-end systems is another place where it would shine. Projects with small teams or limited resources. I'm going to show you some very rapid application development which lends itself to someone with limited resources or people. And Studio can also enhance a developer's capabilities. So perhaps you have a business user who is somewhat technical. Studio would be a great place to help enhance their abilities and maybe let them bring some more value to the table as far as adding to your team. All of these are benefits to business apps. So to me, business apps are an opportunity. It's an area that's very short on service, and that can be your advantage. It's worth the effort. Rather than turning away business and opportunities in this space, people are willing to pay for solutions to business problems. Sometimes when you're dealing with, if you're a web developer, marketing can sometimes take a back seat. A business problem never takes a back seat. They always want solutions for it, and they're going to be willing to pay for it because it's going to save them money year after year after year. The competition is sparse, so you have less competition, less questions about your price versus theirs, your services versus theirs. And the other thing is clients are less sensitive to aesthetics. They're more sensitive to functionality. They're concerned with how their data works, is their data safe, and is it going to solve the problem? And if you enjoy business, if you really enjoy learning about businesses from the inside out, that's a lot of fun. So let's do a demonstration. I'm going to go into Wakanda Studio. This is a beta version right now, so it's you may see the odd visual glitch, but I'm going to open, so go File, Open an existing solution that I have created. So it's this one sample app. I'll open the solution. So a solution is a collection of projects. I'm not going to start the server. There's a project in there, but I'm going to right click and add a new project. So this is, let's call it Super Duper. This is a brand new project. It's going to create the template for a project, and usually when you start a new project, the first place you go is the model. So let's create a model, a really basic model here, and I'll show you some of the features. Let's start with a company data store class. See, we've got the class name and the collection name, so you can refer to them in your code, an entity collection, with a plural. So I'll put companies. We'll add some attributes, maybe a name, which is a string, maybe a sales volume, which would be a number. And we can add a second data store class. We'll call this one person, and the plural of that would be people. And we'll add some attributes to this class. Let's go first name, which is a string, last name, which is also a string, full name, again a string. However, we're going to do something different with full name. We're going to go here to script kind. We're going to make a calculated attribute. So whenever a client, such as a browser or mobile device, requests the full name on GET, we're going to return this dot first name plus space plus this dot last name. So now whenever that's accessed, no matter where from, you're going to have a dynamically assembled full name. Let's keep going with things. Perhaps we want to know their employer. That's a company, and you can see it's created a one-to-many relationship. We'll rename the collection on the company in the company data store class to employees, a little more descriptive. Let's say that we want the company or the employer name directly in the person class. We can make an alias attribute. So we'll go to the employer attribute dot name, and it will pull it directly in. Likewise, we can do what's called a recursive relation. So we can go, let's say we want to know their manager. That's also a person, and this is probably the collection that reports to them, would be best called direct reports. And now we can create a hierarchical data structure very easily. We can access, and I'll show you more about that through a query, access the hierarchy very easily and straightforward. With the model, we have a lot of functionality built in. You can set the scope for a class, public or public on server. Public means it's available from, say, the browser or a client. You can select a scope with individual attributes. You have data rules on different types of attributes as well. And there's events, so on attributes as well as on the class itself. So say for instance, whenever a new person is created, we can initialize the first name. We could go this.firstName equals Charlie. And now anytime a new person is created, their first name will be Charlie. So that's the basics of a model. You know, there's a lot of interesting things in the editor. We've got to help you work with the model and be the most effective possible. So I'm going to close this out. And I'm going to actually take this project out of the solution. And we'll go back to our slides here. So what are the benefits of a model-driven architecture? You have consistent permissions, security, and business rules. They're built right into your model. So regardless of the client, your business rules will always take effect. It keeps your code nicely modular. It keeps server-side code on the server. And you can code against model events for predictability. One thing I did forget to show there was you can actually create methods on each data store class, but I'll demonstrate that going forward. So let's build an application. I'm going to show you Wakanda Studio and actually build an application in the next 15 minutes or so here. So we'll go back into Wakanda Studio. We'll go to this project which I've made, and I'm going to go, well, let's open the model, and you can see that it's fairly similar to the last one that we had. Just a few more relationships and a little more development. You can see here, here's the methods. I've got one public method I'm going to demonstrate called getFamilyObject. And again, the scope on these tells you whether you can access them only on the server or through the browser, and sets those restrictions. You can also set permissions to who can execute, much like you can set permissions on the class itself for read, create, update, and remove. So that's the model. We're going to go into an index page here so I can generate some data, and this is the sample solution I was talking about. We'll just run this, which will start up the server automatically, and I'll fire up the browser. So you can see I have no data. I'm going to create 18 companies, and we'll go 1,500 names. And this is going to create something that's somewhat realistic sample data that you can work with. So I want to demonstrate, these are just default grids in our widget framework, but I want to show you one thing that's consistent and is interesting is we have lazy loading built into these. I'm going to show you how you would work with paging from a more traditional standpoint, but we really like a desktop experience. So it's loaded the initial entities, as you can see, but watch what happens in the network when I scroll. I'll scroll slowly, and you can see that dynamically we're getting REST requests that are automatically paging. And you can investigate, so you have a REST server built in, and I can just quickly scroll right down to 1,500 and it updates seamlessly. So let's go back to our project. Sorry, I'm going to pull this over to the second screen so I can switch back and forth quickly. Okay, so index we don't need anymore. We're going to actually build a new page. New page. We'll call this companies. And again, I'm going to be touching the very basics of what Wakanda can do. One thing I'd love to show you is components, loading things in and out dynamically, but I won't have time for that in this presentation. So we're going to grab a container, put it on the page, and we'll just fit it to the parent, which is the entire page, and I'm going to split it vertically. So now we have a vertically split view. I'm going to create a search interface on the left. So we'll go to a text input, put it in here. Let's style it a little bit. Start with the container, size and position. So I'm going to specify that it's constrained to both sides, so it will grow with this sidebar as we change the size. Go to label, position it at the top. I'm going to give it an ID of search input, and we'll change the label to search. Easy enough. Let's just center that. Now, okay, now let's put in a place for the search results. I'm going to grab from this model tab our right click on company and go create data source. So data source is a view on the data on the client side. So we have a, we'll just drag the name here and it's going to prompt us to make a form or a grid. We'll make a grid. So this is a representation of your model on the client side. We're just going to line this up and I'll size it fully. We don't need the header or footer. And let's create a search. So we'll go to events on this text input. Go to on key up. So every time a key up's done, we're going to do a search. Go to keyword sources, then our data source company.query, and we'll do query name equals placeholder 1, and let's do this how we access our widget's value. You can use jQuery, but we've got an API on top of that as well. So search input dot get value, and then we'll add our wildcard character, and that should work. So let's go back to the browser and we'll just hit that company's page and see if it's working. Okay, so if we hit B, we get the B's. There are no A's, so you can see our search is now working. One thing I would say is when we originally refreshed here, all of the companies came up. That's because in our data source we had an initial query defined. I'm going to take that off so it won't do that initial query of find all. So we've got the search done. Let's do a little more development here. I'm going to pull a grid into this main view. I'm going to go back to the model. I'm going to create a second data source on the company class. You can name it what you like, but this is going to have its own selection, its own current entity, so it's like another view that's going to be independent from the search. And we'll call this company grid. Let's take company 1 and just drag it on there, and that will populate it. I'm going to change this ID to the logo and make it 50 wide. So there's our grid. Let's take the same data source. I'm just going to select a few attributes here, maybe the name, URL, address, and city. Pop it on here. This time we'll do a form, create, and we'll pop that down in the bottom left. And finally, let's take this employees collection, which is a related many, and put it down there. We're going to go a grid. I'm going to take a bunch of these out just so it looks better. Okay, we'll create the grid, place it somewhere somewhat close. And we're going to size these. I'm working on a fairly small screen here, but it will work fine. So with this bottom corner, what we want to do is constrain it to both sides, so it's going to size with the page and just the bottom, not the top. We want it to stay towards the bottom and not resize vertically. This one we just want anchored to the bottom left, and the large list will have size in all 4 directions, so it will scale with the page. Okay, let's save that, go back to our browser, let's do a refresh. So you can see we didn't get this initial search. So we have B and Bayside Ellerson is the selection here. Totally different selection in this list because they're 2 different views of company. And you can see that the related employees is updating as we go. So that's what I'm going to show you on the desktop. But let's go back to here and let's make a smartphone version of this. So here's our smartphone canvas. It's going to be the same company's view, but the smartphone version. So we'll take a navigation view and put this on. We'll title this page Companies. With a navigation view, we've got an outline here of all your widgets. We'll select navigation view. So that's the company list. Let's make a view called Company Details. And that will be more specifics on the company. And let's make a third one called Employee Details. Okay, so we have 3 views. We'll go back to the company and we'll fix this one up. We'll go to our widgets. I'm going to select the list view. We'll size this constrained in all 4 proportions. So this will size depending on what size of phone you've got there. And we'll do 0 on all sides. And we don't need a list, or a label. And let's just drag company on there. So there, we've got company. I'm going to save that. One thing I didn't do, if we go to outline to the document, I'm going to set an iOS tag for meta tag to make it be able to be a web app. So back to the navigation view, let's build let's choose this button to events on click, and let's have the click go to the company details. So it's that navigation view had an ID navigation view 1 dot go to view and number 2. Save that. Back to our page. So that will go to view 2. So let's go to navigation view 2. This will be details. Let's just grab a couple items out of the company here. Let's do the name and the URL. We'll drag those on, do a form. I'm just going to take those out of the form, place them here, and we can size those out a bit. Okay, and let's size those as well. Just make sure that they grow in case we do a tablet, although there is a tablet view or a larger screen phone. Let's go to the widgets. Let's put a button for save. And if we attach a source to it, which would be company, you'll see that we get some automatic actions. We could do this in code as well, but I'm just going to do it this way. So we've got save and save. That'll be the save button for the ID. And let's pull a list view below it. And we don't need a label. Let's size it. So we'll constrain to the bottom. And fix the top here a little higher. And we're going to create a new data source called a relation attribute data source. We're going to do it on our company, and this is going to pull in the related employees. And so for this list here, we are going to assign a source of employees, and that will bring in the list of related employees. Let's change this button to number of children because salary is too big of a number to fit in there, but just to demonstrate the numbers in the list. And then this button, events on click, we can take the same line, copy and paste, and instead we're going to view 3, and we're going to build view 3 in a second. So view 3, we'll go to our navigation view, into view 3, and this is going to be an employee detail page, and we can just open up employees, first name, last name. That'll be good for now. And create. And I'm not going to style this much, it'll just be a demonstration. So let's go into the iOS simulator, and let's put in the same URL, which is right here. Let's make it a web app first, and let's call it the best app, of course. We'll add it, and you can see now we've got a nice native feeling web application. When we click, we go into the company details. We can see all the employees and how many children they have, and we can click into their name. So let's make a change to Bayside Ellerson, name change, save it, and let's go to our desktop, refresh, and Bayside Ellerson, name change. So you can see we've got it writing to the database. Server's running locally, but you could just as easily deploy this somewhere else. So back to our slides. That's a quick demonstration of the application. There's a lot more to Studio. Built-in Git, there's a lot of plugins, there's a lot of project management features. I really have only scratched the scratch of the surface here. So Wakanda Studio is specifically designed for developing business applications. It uses our widget framework, which again is focused on business applications. And currently it's free. It is closed source. Server and the framework are open source. Studio is closed source. So let's take a look at the server a little bit more closely. Go into that same project. I've created just a server-side script. Here's one interesting thing in the development environment is you can actually just run server-side code against the server, and we have a nice little mechanism for immediate feedback. This is a query for everyone whose first name was Bob, and you can read about relationships, about data, and it's a really quick way to test and get feedback. So here's some examples of some queries. Find is the same as query, except it just takes the first element and returns an entity instead of a collection. This is a short form for finding a particular key. So we're in the, let's see here. Yeah, so let's do 270, and we should come up with just the one entity. So there's the one entity. That's just a short form syntax. Here we can do a query on a calculated attribute. So number of children is calculated, and it comes back with whoever has 4 children. It's acting like a native storage attribute, and you can do queries and all kinds of stuff on those. We can query within a related entity. Spouse is a related entity dot first name. If we run that, it's going to get everyone whose spouse first name is Julia. Let's see who has a grandfather. This one's going to return a lot of records. Now this is running in debugger mode, so the server's not as performant as it would be in production mode. But there you go. Father.father is not null. Immediately we can get through a hierarchical that easily just with dot syntax. We can combine collections. We can do calculations. Here's one. I showed you in the model that we had a data store class method called getFamilyObject. I'm going to run it here on the server. I'm going to run it here on the server because I had too many returns on that. So here's the family object. We'll run that, and you can see what it's returning here. It's returning an object with all the children. So there's the parent, there's all the children in an array. The reason I showed you that is going to go back to this, and we're going to the console. I've made that function available publicly, so in the client. If we go to the console, I'm going to do the exact same thing. ds.person.get family object with the same b, and I'm not sure if I put a star, I think just b, and we'll run that, and you can see we get the same object back from the server, the children, the parent. So it's just like what's on the server, so you can return values directly from a server method. Let's go back to our slides. We want to cover REST. So built into this, I'm going to open a file here with some examples of our REST interface. And let's try some of these. So first thing you can do is you can get an idea of the makeup of the application. And you can see it's giving you all the classes, all of the entities. There's a lot of functionality I'm not going to show you here. You can get a specific entity, and I think we need a lower number here. I can't remember the range of IDs we created, but we'll try 289. So there's that one entity, all in nicely displayed JSON. You can do a query like this. So just a filter, last name. There's everyone who has a last name Wilson. You can get involved or see what the server is planning to do by adding this query plan equals true, and it spells out at the top sort of what it's planning to do it, how it's planning to do it. You can get calculations through the REST interface. We're going to calculate everything here. I didn't copy that properly. We're going to calculate everything. You can do them individually, but you can see here it's taken the salary attribute, taken account, the sum, the average, min, and max. And then here's for paging. If you wanted to use this REST server with another front end that paging is used, what we've done here is we've skipped the first 20 and returned 10, and you can see the counts totals 1500, sent 10, first 20. What if we wanted the second page? So we'll start at 40, but we wanted to return 100 entities. It's that easy. There they are. Sent 100 entities, started at 40. So that's a quick look at the REST server. All of this is documented. So Wakanda server highlights. It's a clear, natural NoSQL query syntax. It's a multi-threaded server. It's high performance, so if you have a multi-CPU server, it will fully utilize that. The REST interface is built in. It's open source, and it has simple deployment and very easy maintenance. So there's the information again. If you want to try it out, I'm going to show you as well. You can go to wakanda.org, and there's a full section there for documentation, and you can see everything from the server side to whatever you want to see. There is a full JavaScript API for building your model as well, and there's a lot of good information that you can dig through here. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I look forward to any feedback you've got. We're definitely open to your ideas and want to make this the best platform possible.